Thousands of Georgians again protested against election results as opposition leaders vowed to boycott parliament.
U.S. presidential candidates Donald Trump and Kamala Harris were in swing state Pennsylvania after a bad joke at a Trump rally threatened to alienate Latin American voters. Speaking at a Trump rally in New York, comedian Tony Hinchcliffe called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage, sparking fury from voters and accusations of racism.
When I was knocking at the doors the other day, I did run into an individual from Puerto Rico who mentioned like this actually made him flip his vote. It's something that I feel is very important. You know, like you can't disrespect the people who you're asking them to vote for.
The two candidates are competing to win over Puerto Rican communities in Pennsylvania and other swing states.
Puerto Rico has a big issue because we don't know how to recycle. We don't recycle. We're hiring now neighboring little islands to come and pick up our trash. Maybe he thought that that's what he was saying. So the only candidate today in the ballot that represents Latino values is Donald Trump and the Republican Party. We are family first. We're family oriented.
Pennsylvania is the biggest swing state in the US, and its 19 electoral votes could be the difference between victory or defeat for either candidate.
Sve se češće dešava ovih poslednjih dana kampanje da se Kamala Harris i Donald Trump nađu na istom mestu. Jednom su se zamalo susreli na aerodromu u Charlotteu u Severnoj Karolini. Donald Trump danas je ovde u Readingu, a Kamala Harris na svega sat vremena odavde u Allentownu.
While Americans are anxiously awaiting the outcome of this historic presidential race, Washington is bracing for the worst. The District of Columbia is preparing for another violent attack of supporters of Donald Trump should he lose to Kamala Harris. As you can see behind me, the White House complex is looking like a fortress. A black metal fence of more than 2 meters in height has been added to already existing tight security measures. Federal and local authorities fear scenes reminiscent of the deadly assault on the Capitol on January the 6th, 2021. On that day, a pro-Trump mob ransacked the halls of Congress as the then president spread lies about his election loss. And today, again, Trump has already started to question the integrity of the vote before ballots are counted, especially in Georgia. In that southern state, Republican top election officials and the courts have debunked claims of fraud, but that hasn't stopped Trump from repeating them, resulting in an atmosphere of suspicion and anxiety. Will the election be peaceful? America is holding its breath. Stefan Grobe, Euronews, Washington.
The hearings to confirm nominees for EU commissioners have begun. The first two candidates, the veteran Maroš Šefčovič, Commissioner for Trade and Economic Security, and the youngest, Glenn Mikalev, Commissioner for Intergenerational Justice, were screened in Brussels on Monday. The Slovak Šefčovič, who's been in office since 2009, spoke against trade wars and defended his position strongly. Clashes with China and the Mercosur agreement were the focus of the 3-hour hearing.
This idea, and I will never sign off on a deal that is not in the EU's collective interest.
Despite being criticized for his lack of experience, Malta's Glenn Mikalev seemed to convince MEPs.
In all actions that we take, young people are underrepresented in politics, and they are less likely to vote. This can lead to policies that disregard their interests and concerns. This is why it is essential, it's essential to engage youth, to ensure for fair political participation and representation.
The hearings will end next Tuesday with the questioning of nominees for European Commission Vice Presidents Kaja Kallas and Teresa Ribera.
Citizens, volunteers, and thousands of soldiers and police officers continued a joint cleanup effort following devastating floods in eastern Spain that killed over 200 people. Throughout the town of Aldaya near Valencia, volunteers set up medical and food distribution points. But many people feel abandoned by authorities.
No, aquí estaba toda la calle llena de coches y aquí nadie. Lo único que sí, todos los vecinos de aquí, compenetrado muy bien, nos hemos organizado muy bien y hemos estado limpiando y por eso está así, porque lo hemos hecho nosotros. Nos pusimos una mesa haciendo café para la gente que venía a limpiar y eso, y nos hemos hecho en un puesto de que ahora viene la comida, o sea, nos hemos hecho un punto.
Spain is used to autumn storms that can lead to flooding, but the latest ones have produced the deadliest flooding in living memory for Spaniards. The situation in large parts of Valencia remains dramatic. 90 kilometers of regional railway line were destroyed by the floods. It will take months to get back to normal. Thousands of Georgian opposition supporters gathered in Tbilisi for a second time on Monday to protest the election result they say was rigged. The ruling Georgian Dream Party was declared the winner on 26 October amid allegations of vote rigging helped by Russia. The protesters waved Georgian and European flags demanding new parliamentary elections under international supervision and an investigation of the alleged election fraud. European election observers said they witnessed instances of bribery, double voting, and physical violence. Opposition leaders vow to boycott sessions of parliament and hold regular protests until their demands are met. The opposition is also urging the West not to recognize the vote and will gather more evidence of violations to push for a new election. Sweden has rejected 13 out of 14 planned offshore wind farms in the Baltic Sea, citing security concerns. Only one new wind farm has been approved, the Poseidon project, which will have a maximum of 81 turbines.
Poseidon, som ligger på västkusten utanför Stenungsund, får nu tillstånd att bygga ut en havsvindpark som kommer bidra med en elproduktion på 5,5 terawattimmar per år inom elprisområde 3. Och jag ska berätta mer om den parken strax. Regeringen har också beslutat att avslå 13 havsbaserade vindkraftparker i Östersjön med hänsyn till att en etablering av dessa skulle medföra en oacceptabel påverkan på försvarets intresse.
Sweden's defense minister said that the wind farms would make it harder to detect and shoot down missiles to defend the latest NATO member in case of a conflict.
Germany and the UK signed a significant defence treaty last week, enhancing cooperation against land, sea, air and deep precision strike capabilities. The signing of the Trinity House Agreement binds Germany, the UK and France through bilateral treaties. Defence expert Dr. Eileen Matley says the timing of signing the pact is no coincidence.
It certainly is another step in order to strengthen the European pillar in NATO. Other steps have been, for example, the European long-range strike approach, which focuses on developing and acquiring together in a sort of European context long-range missiles that have become much more vital to the defense, also the sort of air defense bit of European nations in the wake of and also the context of Russia's renewed attack on Ukraine.
However, is the treaty enough to strengthen NATO?
I don't think that this agreement alone will be the silver bullet saving and helping Europeans to contribute much more to their own defense and to take care of their own defense. But I think it certainly is a very important step in political terms, because it sends a message both to sort of domestic audiences, but even more importantly to other Europeans and also to the US audience.
What is the future of this treaty?
So the only thing I think is important also to bear in mind in this context is that this agreement is not legally binding yet. In order to make it legally binding, both countries are or have announced to come up with an actual treaty that will then be signed by both heads of state, by German Chancellor Scholz and by Prime Minister Keir Starmer, which, as far as I know, is supposed to be drawn up earlier next year.
This happens in every election. It's commonplace.
This new pact symbolises a new chapter in European security. Whatever the outcome in the US election, a stronger, more self-reliant Europe is a necessity. Liv Stroud in Berlin for Euronews.
Palestinian officials say Israeli settlers in the occupied West Bank have attacked their neighborhoods, setting cars and property on fire. Local officials said at least 18 vehicles were burned, but no one was wounded during the early morning attack in Al-Bire, a city adjacent to Ramallah. Israeli police who handle law enforcement matters involving settlers in the West Bank said they were investigating the incident. Meanwhile, senior officials in the Palestine Foreign Affairs have condemned Israel's ending of the agreement with the UN agency providing aid in Gaza.
We are deeply concerned by this unlawful decision, which revokes the privileges and immunities of UNRWA and terminates its operation in the occupied state of Palestine. We consider these laws as illegal, null, and void.
Israel says the agency, known as UNRWA, has been infiltrated by Hamas. UNRWA denies the allegations and says it takes measures to ensure its neutrality.